Hello friends and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well today. My name is David and in today's video I'll be showing you how to create your very own leather sleeve for any cup or flask you wish to protect. This project was commissioned by a friend who wanted to protect his flask with an alligator leather sleeve because he loves the texture of this leather. He requested contrasting red stitching and his initials engraved as well. I thought it would be great to share the process with you so that you can see how to create one yourself from scratch, from creating the pattern to stitching the sleeve by hand. The first thing we need to do is to create a pattern for the flask. We might initially think that a simple rectangle would fit perfectly around the flask, but that's only true if the flask has a uniform diameter. Since we're working with a flask that has a thinner bottom and a thicker top, we'll need to make a custom template. For this, we're going to use some masking tape to cover the entire flask. Now there are two ways to do this, and I'll show you both methods in this video. The first method involves covering the flask with tape horizontally, being careful not to let any tape extend beyond the boundaries of the template. To ensure the tape is properly adhered, press it down with your hands before applying more. Once you've applied all the tape, you might notice some wrinkling, but you can easily smooth it out by using a tool like a wooden slicker and applying pressure to flatten it. Next, draw a vertical line on the tape, which will serve you as your cutting guide. If the flask model you're working with can be damaged, you can use a cutter or X-Acto knife to cut along the line. However, if you want to avoid damaging the product, you can use a small pair of scissors with the blades covered in tape to carefully cut along the line and peel the tape off the flask, as you can see here. The second method, which I recommend for this type of project, involves marking 2 points vertically on the flask. Then add the masking tape vertically, starting from one point to the other, following an imaginary line. You can also add the tape horizontally, keeping the boundaries in mind, but I'll continue vertically to demonstrate how to cut it later. Once the tape is firmly pressed, we can draw a line at the limits of our pattern, in this case where the black section meets the metallic parts of the flask, and then use scissors to trim some of the excess tape. Next, we carefully separate the tape along the line we left uncovered and slowly peel it off the flask. It's important to take your time here to avoid accidentally tearing the tape by pulling too hard. After removing the tape, lay it flat on a smooth surface. Press it down with your hands or a tool to ensure it's as flat as possible. This will make it easier to trim any remaining excess tape with an X-Acto knife. A flat cutting mat like the one shown in the video works well for this task. Once the excess is trimmed and we've confirmed that the tape covers the flask correctly, we can attach it to a thick piece of cardboard to give the pattern more durability. Keep in mind that as we add thickness to the tape, it will not fit as neatly back onto the flask. This is something to be aware of when working with tubular patterns like this one, and it's a good thing we notice this now. It prevents us from cutting the leather too small, which could be difficult to fix later. For now, let's focus on securing the tape to the cardboard. Use your smoothing tool to remove any creases and then trim the excess cardboard from the top and bottom sections with scissors. With our pattern ready, we can start making some adjustments. Since the alligator leather piece is relatively small, some upper and lower sections of the pattern will extend beyond the leather. My friend was aware of this, and I assured him I would adjust the template as little as possible to maximize the use of leather for this project. If you are in a similar situation, position the template on the leather in a way that makes the most efficient use of the material. After checking the layout, I trimmed some excess leather from both sides for easier handling, saving those scraps for future projects like a keychain or watch strap. However, I left a generous amount of leather intact since I still need to adjust the final length of the sleeve. I then lined the alligator leather with some black pigskin. This added thickness and made the piece easier to handle as it stiffened slightly and became more stable for working. To press the leather to the lining, I use my fingers and a small scrap piece of lining to apply pressure across the entire surface. I then let the glued pieces rest for about 2 hours under some weight to ensure the glue dried completely before continuing. Once the glue is dry, you'll notice the leather becomes rigid, allowing us to move forward and cut the leather to its final shape. As you can see, the template is actually taller than the alligator leather, so we'll need to reduce the template size slightly. Using a compass, I measured 1 cm and drew an offset along the edge of the template by running the compass metal point along the pattern. This 1 cm reduction also needs to be applied to the bottom section, so I carefully trimmed the excess using a pair of scissors. Now the template fits well over the leather with enough room to work with. Using a scratch awl, I traced the upper and lower sections and marked angled lines outward from each corner, as I still needed to adjust the amount of leather for a tight fit around the sleeve. After marking the limits with the scratch awl, I use an X-Acto knife to trim the excess leather, leaving the sides slightly larger. I then adjusted the template by sliding it slightly to extend the pattern as needed. Next, I cut the vertical lines along the edge of the template and measured the leather against the flask until I found the right length to trim. To ensure accuracy, I used a ruler and a wing divider to mark just a few millimeters before making a straight cut. And after another test fit over the flask, I proceeded with the final cut. Once that's done, I applied some black Fiebing's edge coat to the edges of the sleeve and used some Tokonole burnishing gum with a small piece of canvas to polish them before punching the stitching holes with my diamond chisels. To mark the stitching line, I used an edge creaser which left a clean 4mm offset from the edge of the leather. I then used my 2-pronged diamond chisel from Seiwa for the upper and lower sections and a round chisel for the sides, ensuring the stitching holes match for our cross stitching later on. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, my friend requested the sleeve to have contrasting red stitching. For that, I used fil chinois linen thread in quiff color for the saddle stitching on the upper and lower sections, and black Ritza 25 polyester thread, also known as tiger thread, for the cross stitching on the sleeve. Working with Ritza 25 tiger thread offers one of the best experiences for saddle stitching. It has just the right amount of wax to keep it neat and elegant, while also being easy to handle with needles, as you can see in the video. If you're just starting out with saddle stitching, I highly recommend trying this thread before moving on to linen ones. In particular, I suggest using the 0.8mm thread size, which is the one I use in this project. Cross stitching is quite straightforward with this type of thread. Since you need to tighten the needles and stitches with each pass, this thread provides excellent resistance, and in the end you can seal it with a lighter, as I did for this project. And there you have it, friends, the finished sleeve. Let me know your thoughts on this project, and as always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed the video and found it useful. I really enjoyed working on this project because it was something unique and allowed me to share a quick demonstration on how I like to create patterns for specific products. I'll leave you with some final shots of the sleeve and hope to see you soon in the next video. Have a great day, everyone.